friends. Thank you for joining me for this program designed to look at our government, how it works, and the people responsible for its operation. My name is Dan Armin, and I would like to welcome all you to I Want to Know, and I would like to extend a warm welcome to Carey Duques, our town planner. Thank you for joining me, Carey.
Thank you.
How are you?
Happy to be here. Good.
Good. So first, I always start by asking my guests about them. Why don't you tell me where you grew up, went to school?
Okay, sure. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia in Bucks County, and went to high school there, went to college at the University of Vermont, and from there moved to Boston and attended graduate school at Tufts University. Lived and worked in Boston for about 12 years, worked for two municipalities there, the cities of Salem and Medford. And then after having kids, wanted to be closer to family, so moved down to Connecticut. So I live in Madison now, which is where my husband grew up. So
okay.
Yeah.
What did you major in college?
Environmental studies and political science.
Wow, okay.
Yep.
So then what got you interested in this line of work, the town planning line of work?
So growing up in Bucks County, it was very much of a farming community, actually, at the time.
Doesn't I-80 go through there? Maybe not.
Further west.
Okay.
So yeah, Newtown is the town that I grew up in, Bucks County, not far from 95, Trenton, New Jersey.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I noticed that throughout high school, my town was just growing and growing, and there was a Gennardi's supermarket that was built in the 90s, and then another one, an Acme, was built literally within a quarter of a mile of that one, another plaza taking up farmland. So I wondered why this was happening. It was just very frustrating to see my town just being developed. And then I learned through school that it was actually designated a development node within the county. So they were able to...
Is that a Pennsylvania
Yes.
designation?
Yes.
Okay.
So in order to preserve other areas of the county, they were designating my town, the town that I lived in, as kind of the development area.
The sacrificial lamb.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So anyway, so I was just fascinated in that whole process and wanted to kind of be more involved in it and have more involvement in it. So when I went back to school for my master's, it was in urban planning. So that's where I learned about the whole governmental process, and I had worked for a consulting firm briefly right out of college, but I felt like the public side, I had my hands more on the project and was more involved from start to finish.
Okay.
As opposed to, the private side, the consultant that just is there for
Right,
a year or two.
Their aspect of it, and then you have no idea how the project ended up or what happened with it.
Right.
You're kind of absentee in that respect.
Yeah.
When did you come to North Branford?
2014. So
Okay.
in August of 2014, I started. And yeah, so I'm going on 4 years, and it's been great.
Fantastic.
Really enjoyed it, yeah.
Can you explain to me what you do?
Okay.
What does a town planner do?
Many things. So no day is kind of the same from one to the next, but kind of the basic job description is staffing the Planning and Zoning Commission. So what that entails is really upholding the zoning regulations, so making sure that what's allowed in a certain zone is occurring and complies. So everything from like the very minute details of setbacks of a building from a property line to the actual use. So residential use versus business use. Reviewing permits that come in to make sure that, again, what is being proposed complies with the town's regulations. That's one big part of it.
So are you like the Planning and Zoning Commission's consultant in a way?
Yes.
Or advisor?
Yes.
Like Mike's an advisor to the town council in a way? Okay.
Exactly. So when an application comes in, I would review it, make some comments, really saying whether or not it complies with the regulations, and then I propose questions that the commissioners should ask, and I do that not only for planning and zoning, but for wetlands as well.
Okay, very good.
So again, kind of same concept of looking at the town's wetlands regulations, making sure that they're being upheld, and there's an enforcement side to both of those. But with the zoning enforcement, we now have a zoning enforcement officer who's there 19 hours a week. His name's Tom Hogarty. So that's been a huge help having him there. He's been here for about 2 years now, I think.
And he travels throughout the town, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, real briefly, what does he do? Because he allows you, gives you time to stay in the office in a way.
Yes. So what he does is he enforces the zoning regulations.
Okay.
So he'll respond to complaints, concerns, but then he also reviews applications for smaller things like decks, smaller buildings, residential lots. I look at the larger projects that come before Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
And as the town planner, I can work more with the Economic Development Commission to help promote growth and kind of work with them to say, okay, you'd like to do this, but only, you'd like to do X, but Y is allowed. So
Right.
let's figure out how we can work together.
We can make you happy and comply at the same time.
Exactly, which is where being the town planner and the zoning officer can be challenging, because when I first started, I was the zoning officer as well.
Oh, I see.
So I was saying, oh, you want to come into town, let me work with you, but no, you can't do that. And now I'm enforcing what you shouldn't be doing.
I
And
see.
So it's nice to have two separate people, and we work really well together, but we definitely have our separate roles.
What other departments do you interact with?
So the planning department is located within the building department. So I work closely with the building official and then especially the town engineer, Kurt Weiss. And then we all share a secretary. So that's great dynamic.
So it's basically a department of 4.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. So that's
I can do that math.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So that's where we're located. But obviously I work closely with the town manager as well. And the purchasing office, a little bit with a current project that I'm working on that we'll talk about later. But yeah, and Park and Rec, I work with Lauren and Fran Marola and Public Works. So
Wow, you have a lot to do.
yes,
Your weeks fly by, I bet.
yes.
What is your department's budget? Do you know? Mm-hmm. What is the budget?
I have my little notes here.
Okay,
So,
fantastic.
So I
I'm glad we
actually
interacted before
oversee
this.
right. I oversee 4 budgets. So the planning budget is just over $100,000. It's mainly salaries again for myself, the secretary, which we share, and then there's a lot of professional development that the town supports, which is a huge benefit, both as an employee and I feel for the town as well. So as the town planner, I have my certification from the American Planning Association, and then also my certification from the Connecticut Association of Zoning Enforcement Officers. So some professional development's built into that too. Then there's the Planning and Zoning Commission's budget, which is just over $40,000. And that's mainly just staff time and advertising and some professional development. Zoning Board of Appeals, that's just $2,500 about. And then the wetlands budget.
Thank you,
is about-
volunteers, for all that hard work,
Exactly.
keeping our expenses low.
Right. And then the wetlands agency is about $4,000.
Okay.
So not the biggest budgets in the town, but important.
It's all encompassing,
And
though.
like you say, all of those boards are all volunteers. So
Right. You go to the inland and wetland meetings as well?
I do.
Okay.
yes,
How often do they meet?
once a month.
Both committees are once a month? then?
Planning and zoning
Or they're
is
twice a month.
2 times a month.
Okay.
And then ZBA, which Tom
Right.
Hogarty staffs, is just once a month. Or if they don't need to meet, then obviously they don't meet.
Okay, very good. So then the next question is the big question, really. What projects are you working on? Now I know there's a big project coming up called the Plan of Conservation and Development, which from now on we'll refer to as POCD.
Yes.
Very good? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Why don't you I'm very fascinated with this. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about that?
Okay. So that is a plan that is mandated by the state. So it has to be updated every 10 years. So the last time this was completed was July of 2009. So we have to have ours completed by July of 2019. it enables the town, once we have it complete, to be eligible for different funding opportunities. But the plan itself focuses mainly on where the town is now, like today, as far as growth goes, both
Our demographics.
business, demographics, business growth, agricultural components, open space, and then where we'd like to be. So looking into the future. If we'd like to acquire more open space, if we'd like to have more industrially zoned land, if we'd like to have more walking trails.
How do we decide that, and who decides that? Is it based on how do we sustain ourselves?
That's up to the residents
Okay.
to help us decide. So it's a very collaborative process. I've asked the town council for $50,000, which was approved in the last budget cycle, which is great, to be allocated to hire a consultant to help us with this plan. So what I'm picturing is that we'll have at least 2 large public hearings to get input, and again, with the consultant's help, to get feedback from residents as to what they'd like to see. But while that's going on, I'm also picturing talking with, obviously, the various boards that we've mentioned, Planning and Zoning Commission, Wetlands, Zoning.
Economic
but then
development.
Economic development, but then also different groups in town. So the Land Trust, maybe, definitely businesses,
So it really brings us a
farmers,
project that
obviously.
brings every entity together.
Yes, yes. So, you think about all of the various facets of the town and just trying to tap into each of those stakeholders. That obviously everyone has an opinion of, where they'd like to see the town. So some communities have done surveys, whether it's mailing them out or done them online, but that's one way to try and capture some feedback from residents.
So I suppose then it's up to the consultant to, understand like what's the most effective. How do you, reach as many people as possible
Yes.
with least effort
Yes, and low
and least
cost.
money. Yeah, right.
Right. Because surveys themselves can be thousands of dollars,
Sure.
which, you kind of have to weigh the feedback and the benefit from that. Not to say that people's feedback isn't worth it, but the number of responses. So,
Right.
I'm not a survey expert, but I think that typically the response is pretty low. Like I think it's somewhere between 2 to 5% may be a good response, which is not many people, obviously,
Right.
in town. So,
Well, for a town of 15,000 people, it's very few people.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go ahead. So I think I interrupted you. So go ahead.
No, that's okay. So we have to write a request for proposals to go out and request proposals back from consultants as far as how they'd move forward with this. So I'm hoping over the next 6 months to really have that finalized and issued. I was actually asked by the town of Branford to be on their panel when they went out for RFP to hire their consultant.
I see, okay.
So I experienced that process from their side of the table, which was really
That helps.
beneficial, just to see the various firms that responded and to see the type of proposals that they've come back with and plans.
And do these firms tend to be like nationwide firms, or are they kind of in this part of the country, or are they Connecticut firms? What did you observe?
So what I saw, the ones that responded to Branford's, there was one from New York City, but most of the others were local.
Okay.
Some were larger than others. Some have staffs of, hundreds of people. Others have literally 1 or 2 people.
And this is a statewide effort, correct?
Yes.
Like, so each municipality is on a cycle of every decade.
Exactly, but not necessarily the same cycle.
Right, or otherwise it would be not possible.
Right.
Do other states do the same type of thing, do you know?
Yes, so, well, I know in Massachusetts anyway, we had the open space plan.
Okay.
So it was similar,
Okay.
focused more on open space, but yeah, same concept.
Okay. Geez, we took care of a lot of my questions.
So I can run through another project
Can you please?
to help you out here.
That's horrible. I thought it'd be more complicated than that.
I know. So another project that I'm working on right now is the welcome sign program,
right.
which hopefully
That's been a
will-
project for quite some
It
time.
has been.
If I do recall.
It really is, and it's not. It seems like it should be straightforward, but it's not because
nothing's easy.
we don't even have a design yet. We have a concept, but I've been working with Kurt Weiss. Has been a huge help, just helping me put together the technical specs because he does that all the time. So I've written the technical specs. It's going before town council soon, and it's not only the welcome signs, but we're doing the park signs as well. So obviously I've worked closely with Lauren Monroe and Fran Marola to figure out size of the sign and all of that. So hopefully that will go out to bid this spring, and we'd love to have, signs designed, fabricated, and installed maybe by the fall.
Okay. I mean,
Be conservative, but
it's easy to assume that projects should be easy, but when you put a sign in, you want it to be a certain look, which everybody's got to agree on. Where we're going to put them, who's going to mow around them. I mean, everybody assumes Fran wants to do it, but except for Fran.
Right.
So then how do we evaluate the maintenance of these signs?
Right.
Where should they go, et cetera, et cetera. So these things do take time.
The whole premise of it was that obviously, one, we needed new signs.
Right. Oh, by the way, everybody, Fran Marola is the head of Public Works, so that's Fran.
So the goal was to replace the, kind of worn signs with new signs. But then while we were doing it, we thought, let's try and have some kind of branding, so that people will know, okay, if we see a blue and white sign with the same shape and same font at the welcome signs, then, the next one must be a town park. So, trying to create some kind of a continuity between municipally owned parcels.
Okay.
So, yeah.
The purple and white look. I mean, that's basically our school colors, and that kind of drives the town colors.
Right. So,
any other projects that you'd like to talk about? Or challenges, I should say, that you see coming up other than the POCD?
Let's see. Well, this isn't necessarily a challenge. It's going to be time consuming, but there is the census that's coming up in 2020. So this federal government reached out to municipalities to see if they would have volunteers, which I thought it was important. So I did volunteer to work on, it's called the Local Update of Census Addresses, or LUCA. So I'm working on that right now, which is essentially taking data from the federal government just to make sure that they have the correct addresses. And so if there's new subdivisions that have been built and approved since the last census, making sure that they have the right addresses so that when they do their mailings and door-to-door contact, they're going to the right places.
And that has a lot to do with funding, too, for the town.
Yes.
So that's important.
And so I thought it was really important just to also show that there is growth in the town, and there's been a good amount of development in the past 10 years. So I just started working on that. Other kind of, some issues and challenges. One that comes up a lot is that when the Planning and Zoning Commission has a project that they're reviewing, a lot of people will say, well, why is this happening and you're not focusing on empty spaces at blah plaza, whether it's, Central Plaza is, usually a target. So that is an ongoing challenge because the Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't have a say in which applications come to the town. It's up to the developer to bring ideas to us. It's really the EDC that can then reach out and try and spur interest or development.
They can interact with a developer, they can interact with a property owner as well to find out really in some sort of an unofficial way what they're looking for and see how the town can accommodate them. So like economic development, I think, is kind of the town's liaison to the businesses in a way.
Yes.
I mean, they've done a lot of mailings, they've done a lot of outreach.
Yep.
I know that.
Yep. So actually, a good segue.
Yeah, perfect.
Is so this North Branford, Northford Grown. It's a brochure that the EDC worked on. That I worked on with them that lists all of the farmers and farm stands throughout town, which is great. So these are available at Town Hall, at the libraries, and we have them at each of the farm stands that are listed. But this has definitely been a great resource, and we've received a lot of compliments on it. So it has a large map that you can see here. But I encourage everyone to check out all of these farm stands because they have a lot to offer.
Shop local.
Yes, exactly. So that was a great project that I was involved in, and we've talked about doing some things similar, kind of highlighting a lot of the athletic opportunities in North Branford and Northford. So the Sportsplex, the Ice Pavilion,
Right.
North Farms, so town-owned lands where you can hike and walk. Obviously, some of the areas of the Regional Water Authority's property, you'd have to get a permit for that, but just to highlight those because it's a great resource to have just all of those locations listed
And it's
on one
easy to
brochure.
forget those things are there as well too. So it's good to bring those to the spotlight.
Right, right. Yeah.
What do grants have to do with your department or the projects that we're talking about?
So
Do we get state fund? Do we get state funding for the POCD, or is
No.
it only strictly town funding?
just town funding.
Okay.
Yes, I have not found a grant. I'm not going to say that there aren't any out
Right,
there, but
right.
I've reached out to the Regional Council of Governments to see if they know of funding, but they don't know of any. So I think it's up to each town to really fund that on their own. That does unlock additional funding. But as far as grants and the projects that I work on, one that I'm looking at right now is to refurbish the Auger House. So the Auger House, we've been looking at ways to reuse that. The Land Trust has expressed interest.
Is that a historical building? I don't know if it has that
Date-wise,
designation.
it doesn't have the designation, which is
Okay.
kind of the key point. So there is a grant that's available to just explore the state register of historical places. But it's a question of if we want to apply for that initial grant.
And then what does that do for
And-
us? What restrictions are
Exactly.
involved?
Right. So that's actually before the town council soon as well to
Okay.
make that decision of do we want to start going down this path. But that's a good example of a grant that could unlock additional funding. But
Okay.
that's just that initial planning and surveying grant to look at the Auger House, do a historical research to find out exactly what occurred there and if it's eligible to be listed on the Register of Historical Places.
Any other issues that you see your department dealing with in the near future?
One thing from the zoning side that this has been kicked around a lot is a blight ordinance.
Oh, correct.
So Tom Hogarty is excellent. Again, he's the zoning enforcement officer. He's a retired state trooper, understands the zoning laws very, very well, and really has done so much in the town and with our existing regulations. So he and I have gone back and forth, and we have a number of blight cases in town, but he's done a great job taking advantage of the existing regulations and the state's system and process so that we're not spending town dollars to have our town attorney do a lot of the court
do
hearings.
that investigation.
Right, so he actually gets the, I think it's the Attorney General's office possibly involved so that they're going through it from the housing side and not, again, spending taxpayer dollars.
Or all your time, you
Right.
can kind of delegate that off.
Right. So we're still exploring the whole blight ordinance, but that is something that's come up quite a bit.
Okay.
Some of the concerns with it are that do we have to create a separate committee to review these cases, and we don't even have an ordinance in place for
To
fining,
back
so
up,
that would
to
be
have backup to
Right.
use as a datum, if
right.
you will.
Right.
So that would come first. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
What are you looking forward to? Not the challenges, but what are you looking forward to? I mean, it'll be nice to see the results of this POCD, but how long of a process is that?
About a year.
A year. Okay,
Yes.
so we have to be done by 2019.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to the POCD. I think it will be a great process just to work with various stakeholder groups that I mentioned that I've already been working with. But hopefully I'll meet new people that haven't been involved and just to really get an even better feel for what residents would like to see the direction that the town, should go in.
Sure.
Whether it's, some towns, their plan of conservation and development is stay the same. Don't change anything. But, we have to look out for the next 10 years. What vision do we have for the town? Do we want to change some of the areas that are zoned certain ways? Do we want to expand business zones? There's been so much talk about 1599
Sure.
Foxton Road, the old town hall location, and should that change? Should that be open space? So I see that being a good part of the discussion of the plan of conservation and development. So I'm looking forward to that process.
That's going to be a nice process. So what do you like most about North Branford? You live in Madison, but it's a short commute here.
Short commute, but no, I really like the variety of the town. The agricultural feel, I think, is part of my favorite. Just that drive up 22 and seeing the sunflowers on Larry Augur's field are just...
Oh, that's awesome.
It really is. It's just, you can't beat it. In all of the towns, surrounding North Branford, that's very unique
Sure.
and a huge resource. So
We need more parking to look at that field.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I think just the agricultural components of the town, that's really my favorite. Just it blends so well with the single-family housing, and then we have a nice mix of residential.
And we have a town spirit that anybody would be envious of. We take care of each other.
Absolutely.
We're one big family here.
It's true. The amount of people that I've seen come out for, each other.
Supporting each other.
Sure. Is, very, very nice.
Okay, well, thank you, Carey, for
You're
your time.
welcome.
I appreciate this. I'm sure the people at home will appreciate knowing who you are and what you do. And thank you, everybody at home, for joining me today. I would like to make this show as interactive as possible, so please email me at danarminnb@gmail.com with any questions or comments you may have regarding the show. Please help sustain Tutucket TV. It would be nice to have some new LED lights around here. Tutucket TV serves our community, and Tutucket Times serves our community in print, and I'm sure Frank would like more ink. Thank you very much, everybody. I look forward to seeing you again for another episode of I Want to Know.